Just approaching 27 minutes past 8. Good morning. There was a time when playing your favourite computer game meant putting a little tape into the machines and you had to wait ages for it to load, and it made a really annoying, squeaky, whiny noise.
Yeah, I remember it. I had I'm sure my VIC-20 had a Commodore VIC-20.
That's Commodore 64.
Oh yeah, but we upgraded to a Commodore Amiga. There you go. Do you remember the ZX Spectrum? Now that went on to influence the UK gaming scene. That was a real game changer, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Nadia Guyan has been to look at the special event which is celebrating that very computer.
Can you guess the year? Margaret Thatcher was in power, future king and queen were born, and this man was about to change the world. No Googling, the web wasn't created then either. The National Museum of Computing is marking the ZX Spectrum's 40th year since its launch in 1982, and a new industry was born.
Well, what we have here is a ZX Spectrum, and this was released 40 years ago to a very surprised market. It's a home computer. Sinclair's intention was for it to be used as an educational or business machine. But because of its popularity in the home, what the kids wanted to do was play games on it. The irony is that that made it the far more successful machine.
What I've noticed is that there's no controller. How did you use the actual game?
Well, in the early days, you had to use the keyboard. And the classic up, down, left, right, and fire would be matched to keys on the keyboard. The typical combination was Q, A, O, and P. And you would use them to control the game. Later on, peripherals were added so you could plug standard joysticks in.
Now, this is all very new to me, but if you grew up in the 80s, you may have had one of these in the home. Now, the ZX Spectrum did more than just provide a few games to keep teenagers occupied. It also paved the way for gamers to create their own. And it was this manual that provided budding creators the tools to code, something Dr. Steve Vickers worked hard on.
Sometimes, you're reading a manual, instructions, it all seems very easy to start off with, and then suddenly you hit a brick wall where it suddenly ramps up, and you have to understand a lot more before you can get any further with that. And I really was doing my best to avoid that kind of wall. It was going to be the idea was for it to be a learning curve that people could go all the way up. It might be harder work at the end, but they wouldn't suddenly find a cliff face that was a complete barrier to them.
When you went into making the ZX Spectrum, what did you hope people would get out of it?
I really hoped they'd get a feeling of creativity, that they understood the machine well enough to be able to control it and create things of their own.
It not only did that, but became Britain's best-selling microcomputer and sold for £125, which would be around £500 today. People attending the exhibition can step back in time, learn something new, and for those a little older, play their childhood games. Nadia Jani, BBC News.
What were the games you were reminiscing over just then?
Dizzy, which was on the Commodore 64 and others. It was a Spectrum. And my dad made me, because it was interesting, because it allowed people to program for the first time. So you could do it. And my dad made me a spelling game to practice my spellings. So,
didn't work, did it?
I'm a great speller, I'll have you know. Thank you.
I used to love the Winter Olympics. We had the Winter Olympics games, and you used to have to press the space bar when you wanted to jump. Stuff like that.
And I think people got RSI from doing that a lot.
Here's a tale for you.
This is straight out of a computer game, actually.
It's a one-eyed cat